Good day, everyone. My name is Chris Avis. I'm an IT evangelist with the Microsoft Corporation, and as always, if you have any questions at all, you can reach me through my blog at chrisavis.com. For this little screencast, we are going to be talking to the developer types out there and talk a little bit about virtualization and how it might be able to help them with their development and the processes that they go through to do all that developer-y type stuff. In particular around the capability of doing snapshots, which provides us a point to fall back on in case anything goes wrong. Now what we're looking at here is my Windows 2008 R2 server at home. So this is my real kind of production environment. And I'm opening up the server manager. We're going to drill down into the roles, and we see here that Hyper-V is installed. And if we continue to drill down into the Hyper-V manager, we'll see that I have a variety of images that are up and running. The top 4 of these here are for my production environment. And then I created about an hour or so ago a developer image for doing developer stuff. Now I'm an IT pro, so developer stuff to me is creating batch files, some PowerShell script, and that pretty much is the end of it for me. I'm not a big-time coder, so you won't see any Visual Studio for this, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to connect the dots and see what I'm getting at whenever we do these demos. So the first things first, there's a couple of ways to connect to the image. If you have access to the Hyper-V Manager, you can simply double-click on the image that's your developer image and then get logged in. I have an account called SuperDev Osborne. We'll get logged in. Likewise, you could also make this available once an image is set up, a virtual machine is set up. If we go to the properties of my computer, we have this option called remote settings. This allows us to, by default, remote desktop is turned off, but we could turn on remote desktop connectivity, select the users or security groups that have access to this image, add them in, and then grant access via RDP. But for the purposes of this, we'll just use the console session. So I've been working in this environment. I've got some code here already. If we go out here to Computer, the C drive, I have a directory here called My Code, and I have a couple of pieces of hardcore code in this directory. So let's take a look at one piece called oops.bat. Let's edit this. Looks pretty straightforward. We are going to clear the screen. We're going to do a directory of C:\Windows System32. The /A gets all of the files. The /S gets all of the subdirectories. And then a pipe out to this current directory of my code and dir stuff. So dump the contents of the System32 directory out to a text file called dir stuff. Should be pretty simple, but developers know that even the simple stuff can trip us up now and then. So might be a good idea to back up, provide some sort of a checkpoint, if you will, to get back to in case something goes wrong when we decide to launch this code. So let's go back out here to our Hyper-V console. If we highlight the developer image in this case, we'll see here in this section called Snapshots that I have a snapshot. And what a snapshot is exactly that. It's a picture of a point in time. It's the memory, the file structure, everything that's going on within a virtual machine at a given point in time. And in this case, I took this image, about an hour and a half ago whenever I was prepping for this screencast. Now what we want to do is before we launch any of this code, we want to make sure that we can get back to this point if something goes horribly, horribly wrong. And I don't predict that anything will. I'm just saying just in case. So let's create another snapshot, and this will allow us to fall back here if we need to. It's real easy to do. We right-click on the image in question, we select Snapshot. In the status column, we see that it's taking the snapshot. It will go fairly quickly. The speed with which it does a snapshot is dependent entirely upon a couple of things. The speed of the hard drive subsystem, but more importantly, on the size of the image itself, the virtual machine, and the number or the quantity of changes that has taken place since that virtual machine was started up to the point we decide to take the snapshot. In my case, small image, not a lot of change, didn't take long. The new snapshots that get created, they will always default to the name of the virtual machine itself. So test VM for exam, test VM for exam, and then we append the date and time to this as well. We can also rename these easily enough. I'll just call this before oops, so that we know that we are about to execute some code. This is the snapshot just before we execute this code called oops.bat. So I have my snapshot. I have a place to fall back to. Let's go ahead and launch this code. So we launch it. It starts doing its thing. And what the heck? I see a bunch of folders popping up in the background. That doesn't seem right to me. What's going on here? So, unnecessary folder. Wow, I've got a bunch of them too. What's going on? There's my dir stuff thing. So it seems like let's tell you what. Let's just kill this batch file because we don't know what's going on. Something didn't happen correctly, and let's go ahead and take a look at this batch file again. Well, where's all the... Oh, look at that. I've got a scroll bar. There was some hidden code down here. Looks like we have a loop that says we are going to create some directories, and if I'm doing my math right, there's about 15,000 directories it wanted to create as a part of this. We let it get about halfway through that. That's kind of a bummer. Probably pretty easy to delete these, but we happen to catch this. If this directory would have been off somewhere else, it could have created this. It just as easily could have been a delete command. Kind of a bummer. Well, I tell you what, we can actually recover from this really easily. But I'm going to demonstrate one other thing for you on this before we do so. Actually, you know what? I tell you what, let's go ahead and do it now. With this image running, we can actually come out here to where it says before oops at our snapshot. We can right-click this. We can select apply. Click apply. It's actually going to shut that virtual machine down. It's then going to turn it on, merge in the snapshot image that we took, and then bring that virtual machine back online for us. And it goes relatively quickly. Again, depends a lot on the hard drive subsystem and how much change has taken place. But look at this. All I did was apply that snapshot. We're back to our my code directory. Those 6,000 or so directories that were put in place, that's all gone because the snapshot was that point in time snapshot of where we were before we executed that code. So we recovered. No big deal. Let me give you one other example on this. I have another piece of code here. It was sent to me by someone else in my development group. He has reassured me up, down, left, sideways that this code is totally safe to launch. You know what? I go and drink beer with this guy. I trust him. He's a developer. We always trust developers, right? I gave you a little time to think about that. So, anyway, I have this piece of code, and I want to run it. And let's go ahead and do that. We'll just go ahead and run this, and let's take a chance. We'll run this as an administrator even, and let it do its thing. And you know what? It looks like it's trying to do something, but I feel pretty comfortable because it says access is denied, which means it's not doing anything really. Shouldn't be that much of a big deal to me. Just shouldn't be that big deal. Oh, and now it says that it's all done, and to please reboot, press any key. I'm going to go ahead and press a key, and let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and restart this image because it told me to. And we'll reboot this virtual machine. So this will take us just a moment here to get through this process. I've got a pretty slick, fast system, but I want to make sure that it works. All right, here we go. So we're in the reboot process. We should see a post here in just a moment. And here we go. Let's see if we can scroll down some. There it is. Oh, hey, what's this? Windows is loading files. That doesn't look like the normal startup screen. We must have done something to this system. It's loading up. Well, that looked a little bit more normal. Looked like it was going to try and start up Windows. All right, so let's see if we can... Oh, startup repair. Wow, so Windows saw something pretty critical enough for it to launch startup repair. Well, you know what? I'm on a deadline. I know that I rebooted my machine this morning and it didn't do this. It was working just fine. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come right back out here to this snapshot, and we are going to, there we go, we are going to right click on this and apply. Let it turn this machine off. Merge in the changes, or the snapshot, so we can get right back to where we were. restore the image, and what we should end up with is being right back at that starting point prior to when we launched this little batch file that we assured was safe. And looks like it was actually pretty nasty. It went out to the system32 directory, it did a del star.star quiet mode, and then told us to reboot when it was done. So it basically wiped out a lot of the operating system files and put us in a system repair situation. It could be just as bad. It could have been even worse than that, to where it just actually blue screened on us. The point being here is that the snapshot process provides a safe way for developers to snapshot the existing system before we start to test any code or even make changes to our development environment. I know developers, they're just like anybody else. They want to optimize their workflow, their patterns, their practices as much as possible, and to be as efficient as they can. And so if there's a snap-in or an add-in or something of that nature for a development tool, developers spend a lot of time customizing and tweaking their development environments, and they don't want to add in some sort of an add-in or snap-in that is going to change the development environment for the negative. So this provides this fallback point. So that's just a real quick primer on a little piece of virtualization and why it would be good for developers. Again, I'm Chris Avis. If you'd like to get a hold of me for some questions, just reach out to chrisavis.com. We'll see you on the next screencast.